Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you all showing up to our WhyTry webinar today. My name's Jason Johnson. Very excited to be moderating the discussion today with two good friends on and some really important information to discuss. Uh, so let's do this. Let me go over just kind of the outline, the expectation for the webinar. Then I'll introduce our title and subject matter and our panelists. So welcome everybody that's on. This is one of our WhyTry live webinars. We do these pretty regularly. I think we're up over 100 now total that we've done since 2020. And we address a lot of different subjects. We try to highlight different organizations, different groups, exceptional practices. And then we also try to highlight how our material will interact and engage with certain other models, which is what we're going to be talking about today around the community schools model. We're scheduled to go for about an hour. This will be an hour live webinar. It is on a webinar link. So that means the three of us panelists, Christian, Bob, and myself, are the only ones with live cameras and microphones. The rest of you in attendance, you're observing. You can be active participants in the chat. We do have a live chat, and so we're happy to hear from people in the chat. One note on the chat, just if you can double check one setting on the chat that's helpful. If you open up your chat box where you write in a message, right above where you type the message, it says to, and then there's a little drop-down menu where you can select who you're sharing your message with. Adjust that to everyone if it's not currently set to everyone. That'll make it so everybody can see your comment. If it says to hosts and panelists or anything besides everyone, then when you put in a comment, not everybody will be able to see it. So make that adjustment. That'll help it so that everybody can kind of be actively participating and seeing how we respond to the chat. We may try to respond to a few questions if you have some of those that come up in the chat, and it's a fun place for interaction. So once you've made that adjustment, go ahead and do this favor for me. I like my usual check-in. Let's do a quick check-in. Type an emoji that expresses how your school year is going so far. Type it into the chat. Share an emoji that expresses where you're at so far in the school year, how things are going. Dr. Mitchell, I just had you in a training session the other day, if I remember right.
Nice.
Welcome. All right, welcome back. Good to see you back on. I love the emojis. We're seeing
Those are great. I like the upside down. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh no.
I think I relate to Judy and Wendy, man. All right, Judy and Wendy, I see y'all.
Yeah, I can. I think I can relate to everyone that was shared. So thank you. And sometimes all we can do is laugh. Sometimes that's the only response left. Oh, Jody, we could. And hopefully this feels a little bit like a break. At a minimum, hopefully this will recharge some of your batteries a little bit. Really appreciate.
A long month for teachers. October's a long month for educators.
It is. It really is.
Like March.
Yeah. Those are the ones. So and we've had a lot of Octobers, it feels like, lately. So hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be here. My name's Jason Johnson, as I mentioned. Our topic today, the title of our webinar is called Root Causes, Real Solutions, What Every School Can Learn from the Community Schools Model. So huge shout out and welcome to any of our guests on today that are part of the community schools family, that are part of a community school. Very happy to have you here. And for those that aren't, excited for you to get to learn a little bit about it. It's a really good model. And we're really excited to share a little bit more about our approach within it. So to help with that, I've got two incredible panelists today. Fortunate to be joined by Christian Moore, the founder of the WhyTry organization, author, national speaker, presenter, licensed social worker, etc. And Christian will share a little bit more about his background. But Christian, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Hey, great to be here. Excited to be here.
And then very thrilled to have Bob Mayo, administrator of the Choices program, as well as I think you were recently given another duty. I don't have the title in front of me.
I was given the director of school safety too for the county.
That's what it was.
Oh.
Director of School Safety in Tulare County, California. Exceptional county and an exceptional leadership office there. We've highlighted their work a few times, and we're always really, really thrilled to have representatives from Tulare on with us because I just think they have an exceptional vision and an exceptional ability to make things happen and create buy-in in a really unique way. And look at that, you've got fans from Tulare. Darby, welcome.
It's my fourth time. I'm wondering if on the fifth time I get on Saturday Night Live, I get one of those,
I've considered I have considered the 5-timers jacket, Bob. We'll discuss. We'll figure something out.
Wow.
And then I'm Jason Johnson. I'm the director of training for the WhyTry organization. I've done this for about 10 years. Prior to this, I worked as a school psychologist in the largest school district of my home state of Utah, where I used the WhyTry resources. And then about 10 years ago, they talked me into coming over to WhyTry full time, and it's been awesome. I feel really fortunate to be able to work with educators and mental health providers throughout the country and to talk about a topic that's really important to me, that's kind of at the center of everything. My area of specialty is resilience. So I think that'll probably tie in a little bit to what we talk about today as well. So thank you everybody for being here, and let's get right into it. Christian, I'm just going to throw to you and let you kick things off here. And let me pull up some slides. There you go.
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody here. We do quite a few of these, and just I get pretty good at reading the chat window. And man, we have some expertise on with us today, Bob. I'm telling you what, these guys are. We got people with a lot of experience and have done incredible work. I can totally tell. So yeah, I know you guys are very busy, so I don't take that for granted. Give you a little background how I became interested in resilience, why I helped start WhyTry with my business partner Hans. It comes out of my own life experience. I grew up in between DC and Baltimore in the 70s and early 80s. That was quite a fun place to live. Saw a few social problems growing up. Both my parents struggled with some pretty intense mental health problems. I struggled with basic math and reading skills. Had a hard time telling time on a clock in my even early 20s. I, never thought I'd have the opportunity. I was 28 years old and never even made over $6 an hour. The average income for students of my background with moderate to severe learning disabilities is about $12,000 a year. I had no hope for leaving my neighborhood. It's interesting. A lot of my most of my friends didn't have cars. My son the other day heard me say in an event that I never thought I could get out of my neighborhood. He was laughing at me pretty hard. He's like, "Dad, you never thought you could leave your neighborhood." And I just explained to my son, Carson, you and me grew up in two different worlds, man. I didn't think I was going to get out of that neighborhood. And the irony is I've been able to go 7 million miles around the planet. And I look back at just how little I understood at that age. It gives me so much compassion for these young kids that have a hard time seeing their potential, seeing their vision. Because I know at that age, and that picture you see of me right there in my Washington Commanders coat, I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl this year. By the way, I just want to make sure Jason knows that. He's a Broncos fan, but his Broncos are looking pretty good. I hope, Bob, you're a Commanders fan more than a Broncos fan there, Bob. But
something. I will cheer on the Commanders.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. All right, I knew he had some that next level smarts. All right. Next slide here. Oh, the Bronx, New York is in the house. All right, gotta show some respect to the Giants. All right. As long as they're not the Cowboys. All right, we're good. All right, I'm sorry about the Yankees losing though in the Bronx. I do feel bad about that. So I ended up writing this book called The Resilience Breakthrough. And what's unique about this book is it shows where resilience comes from internally. And we'll talk a little bit about resilience as a passion that all three of us have. And I'll definitely get into that in a little bit. But the uniqueness of the book is it shows people, where resilience comes from internally. The next slide there. I did my graduate thesis on the impact that learning disabilities has on poverty and crime. I learned that over 80% of our adult inmates in our adult prison system have a learning difference. Over 70% of youth in our youth correction system. Over 70% of people on public assistance. When I heard politicians talk about welfare issues, prison issues, I saw learning disabilities never mentioned. Even to this day, when they debate all these economic issues, you never hear it talked about. And when I started looking at the data around it, it just blew me out of the water. And frankly, some professors said, Christian, you can scream about it all you want, but no one's going to listen to you unless you have tools. And that's what the three of us will be talking about. I came across the Kauai Resiliency Project, this over 20-year longitudinal study. They wanted to know, two kids grew up in the same home, same neighborhood, same background. One child makes it out. I saw this in my own family. The other child doesn't make it. What's the X factor? And they found one of the key X factors was resilience. And the interesting thing about resilience, it was the ability to see your suffering, your pain, your challenges as an actual resource. And I remember thinking that how could suffering be a resource? How could pain be a resource? And we do know now, if you can channel it in productive ways, that's one thing that makes human beings so powerful, is the ability to take difficulty, opposition, and use it as a fuel source. That's what makes us special as human beings. We're the most powerful thing on the planet that can take suffering and do good with it. And that's what's special about us. So here's my life story in a nutshell. I used to verbally tell it, and all my friends were like, Christian, you tell your trauma over and over again. You need to put that in a video so you don't have to relive some of the stuff you've been through. But anyways, here's my story. This is why I became interested in resilience. I grew up in between Baltimore and D.C., and a family of 12 kids, 5 brothers, 6 sisters. Both my parents had some mental health challenges. My mom had social phobia, generalized anxiety disorder, had a fear of leaving the house. You have to leave the house to go get food. So there was a lot of food to eat sometimes in my house growing up.
Don't tell anyone, but my dad was one of the highest level code breakers at the National Security Agency. You could give my dad any mathematical problem and he could instantly rattle it off the top of his head. My dad was autistic. He was a genius, but he had very little common sense or social skills. If you've ever seen that movie, A Beautiful Mind, you've met my dad.
So having 2 parents with some mental health challenges put me in a situation where I ended up being a street kid. I could hang out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on a school night, had very few rules, very few boundaries. One night, I was out late at night and a car pulls up and I hear a voice, and the voice I hear is the voice of a woman who I endearingly called Mama Jackson. It was one of my best friend's moms who sees me out there, late at night.
Christian had so many obstacles that was going on in his home.
She knows what I'm out there doing, and she says, look, don't you ever set foot on our property. I'm going to call the school tomorrow. I'm going to make sure you're not in any of Sean's classes. I remember thinking to myself, dang, I know I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. I can never go to school with him ever again.
When you see a child that's hungry, there's no happiness there. You're thinking about what other kids have that they don't have, okay? But when you see a child that's hungry and you give that child some food, you see that child's disposition change.
Yeah. Going to school was very difficult for me. As a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD, conduct disorder, and severe learning disabilities. When I was sitting in a classroom, oftentimes, I was embarrassed. When I got called out loud, I would act up and get in trouble instead of embarrassing myself because I didn't know how to read or didn't know how to do basic math. So, for me, it was like going to the doctor's office every day, going to school. I had a hard time telling time. When I was even 17 years old, I couldn't tell time on a hand clock. To me, 4:45 equals 25 minutes to 5, but they tell me 1/4 is 15. But how could 1/4 not equal 25?
We concentrate on that more to make sure that a child's needs are provided for, then that child will thrive. I know that I'm loved, and I know that this person is going to feed me to make sure I have what I need.
Mama Jackson took over.
One of his teachers in high school said to him that he would never go to college. Kristen went to college.
Growing up in between DC and Baltimore, I saw many social problems in my community, in my neighborhood. I saw poverty. I saw hopelessness at times. I even saw some violence. But I remember walking to school one morning and literally seeing one of my best friends evicted from his house. His furniture was all throughout his front yard. I could see the heartbreak in his eyes, his parents' eyes. And I knew in that moment, I wanted to be a social worker. And I knew I could not become a social worker unless I went to college. But I was told college was probably not going to be an option for me with a 6th grade math level, a 7th grade reading and writing level. Statistically, I had a better chance of playing the NBA and becoming LeBron James.
His experience was at the other side of the track. Life was different. Life was unique. And the kids like that, they have to survive.
I struggled getting through college math. College math is a requirement to make it through school. I remember that feeling in my stomach where I knew I couldn't graduate.
They're not going to let me graduate because I can't do math. I can't count money. I can't numbers. I get confused and all of these things. He was like a bobcat in a cage.
So I came up with something called the No F game plan. And this is a strategy that I use to make it through school with my learning differences.
He made himself big. He made himself known to others. I'm here. Hey, I may not have what you have, but I have a street smart.
I would go to every class. I would sit on the front row. I would do all the homework assignments. And I would do enough extra credit to get a D-. I would shoot for A's, but I learned in college you get just as much credit with a D-.
And his paper is not polished. Other students get an A. Christian gets B, sometimes a C. But he has ideas. He has a substance. And the WhyTry program that he ran with and helped incredible number of students and the teachers and administrators came out of a classwork.
He created an environment to teach teachers how to really deal with students that may have significant functional limitations.
I persevered. Luckily, I knew what resilience was. I knew how to take my academic challenges and use them as a reason to knock down barriers, to focus on what was right with me, not what was wrong with me.
The vision of WhyTry, and I think this thing is called the roller coaster ride. And I'm so glad that when he fell off of that roller coaster, that he got back on.
Dr. Virgil Wood, civil rights icon and close friend to Dr. Martin Luther King, learned about WhyTry's impact and decided to honor Mama Jackson with the National Rosa Parks Save the Children Award. Mama Jackson gave me a safe and loving environment so I could thrive. She didn't get rid of my problems at home, at school, in my neighborhood. She showed me how to use those problems as a fuel source to put one foot in front of another and create a productive outcome with the opposition. Despite my many challenges, I was able to get a master's degree with a 6th grade math level and a 7th grade reading and writing level and become a licensed clinical social worker. As a school social worker, I quickly noticed it was very difficult to engage students like myself, especially students coming to school with no paper, no pencil, no notebook, totally disengaged from the academic process. I noticed doing verbal cognitive intervention didn't reach many of these students. One day, my colleague pointed out to me that most of the students I'm working with are visual learners, not auditory learners. So I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm an artist. Why would I not take everything and make it visual for the student? Most of these kids are visual learners. So I decided to take evidence-based mental health practice and deliver it in visual metaphors. And I noticed once I did it in a visual metaphor, the student locked in on the visual picture. It kept them engaged. They were far more interested in what I was doing. I knew I had the student in that moment. Using visual metaphors to teach things like your decisions have consequences, how to tear off your labels, how to understand your emotions and the emotions of others. And what was really exciting to me is sometimes 2 or 3 weeks later, they could remember the details of what we did a few weeks before in counseling. And that's when I knew we had that engagement. Then we decided to reinforce the picture with music and physical activities to increase that engagement even more. We took brief solution-focused therapy, reality therapy, strength-based counseling, and combined it into a learning method that any educator or counselor could use to reach students, especially students that are having a hard time answering the question, why try?
All right, as you can see, I was extremely lucky to have Mama Jackson show up in my life the way she did. I mean, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go 7 million miles across this country to do what I did without her. The highlight of my life was seeing her get that National Rosa Parks Award. That was absolutely incredible. It's interesting. The young man who played me in the video, he was on the set there, you know, we're making the film there, and he's on the set, and one day he kind of walks off to the side of the set, and he's in tears, he's crying. And we're like, man, is he okay? I'm there talking to his dad. And I walked over to him and said, hey, are you okay? And he goes, who's that lady? And just the lady playing Mama Jackson, just was emotional for him. He goes, yeah, just never felt that kind of love. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This young man in a fake situation in a film is connecting with this African-American woman. I said, have you ever been around an African-American woman before? A black woman? He's like, no, not really, not very much. And it was just really surreal to see even my life story in an acting thing played out like that. I'll never forget how strange that was and how emotional that was. That was something else. I don't always share that story. A little side note there. So again, I saw most of these kids were visual learners. When I first worked with them, at the end of the hour, I would say, what do we do today? They would tell me whatever I wanted to hear to get the heck out of my office as fast as they could. But when I made it visual for them, I'd say, what do we do today? They could give me a discourse. And even 6 months later, they could explain the visual picture back to me. And we've even seen now, a couple years later, they can still explain it. The next slide here, again, I just started hand drawing everything in counseling. Then we reinforced it with music, physical activities, and we have a wide array of skills here. So this is the reality ride that you heard Mama Jackson alluding to, talking about, where she got a little emotional. This just shows kids their decisions have consequences. Until a child understands that behavior A plus behavior B will equal consequence C, we'll see very little change in behavior. In graduate school, when I learned that, I thought, okay, how can I put that in a visual representation for them to really see the ups and downs of life? Nothing better than a roller coaster, right? So I'll say, what's the definition of reality there at the top? They'll say reality is what's going down, reality is what's happening. I'll say identify a goal, any goal, as long as it doesn't hurt yourself or others. And you can see step 4 there is there challenges at home, at school, with peers. You just saw my challenges in those 3 environments. And I'll say a lot of times because of those challenges, we do some things that get us into trouble. You know, what's getting you into trouble? It could be skipping school, using drugs, stealing, fighting, running away. They go up, they have a rush, and then reality kicks in. I use their own words. They'll say, what did you tell me? What's the definition of reality? They'll say, reality is what's real. And I'll say, they'll say reality is what's going down. I'll say, what's the reality of skipping school? The consequences, the crash there is I had to go to in-school suspension. I got kicked out of class. I'm failing my classes. The loop represents the problems they keep doing over and over again. And then I'll say, hey, my job is to show you how to get out of that loop. You know you're in the loop. If you feel frustrated, confused, angry, scared, you keep having the same problems over and over. So we want to get them out of that loop and get them on that track to opportunity, freedom, self-respect. And, we believe that's the answer to the question, why try? If you try in life, you'll have more opportunity, you'll have more freedom, you'll have more self-respect. I never thought I could get out of my neighborhood, let alone go 7 million miles. Yesterday I was the keynote speaker at the National Alternative Education Conference in New Orleans. And so I was eating incredible redfish on Bourbon Street, last night. And then today I'm here, whatever. I mean, it's the most amazing thing in the world to have freedom. We underestimate the power of freedom. And when you're dealing with poverty, abuse, different types of violence, hopelessness, you don't feel that freedom, and just really painting that freedom for these kids to see is powerful. So the rest of the other 9 metaphors show them how to get on that track to opportunity, freedom, self-respect. The next one here is we want them to tear off their labels. Jason, you want to share this one, tearing off labels?
Yeah, happy to. So just to give a little additional kind of foundation for those that maybe unfamiliar with the WhyTry approach, our specialty is helping people teach resilience. And what we've done is we've broken resilience down into individual skills and sources of resilience. And so this WhyTry approach helps us to teach the skills of resilience. So the one Christian just went through helps to teach decision-making and consequences. This one is part of a series of discussions and visual metaphors that help us teach positive self-image and help students tap into and connect to a thing we call the real me. We are seeing students at a very early age starting to have negative labels attached to themselves, sometimes as early as kindergarten and first grade. And so those negative labels really have a detrimental impact on resilience. They can be really sticky. They can be really hard to get rid of. I run into adults all the time that still have labels attached to them that may have been attached when they were children, young people. And so they can be hard to shake. So the big picture here is that we want to help empower students to tear off negative labels and then help them recognize the goodness that exists underneath those labels. We call it the real me, and then figure out how to share that goodness, to show that goodness to the world through their behavior, through their decision making, as we connect to some of the previous concepts. So from a visual metaphor standpoint, those cans on the bottom row represent labels that grown-ups have given to young people over the years. And we've probably all known kids that had these labels, like within the system, within our buildings, within the work that we're doing. And so this becomes an opportunity to try to really help students, empower students to tear those negative labels off and tap into the real me. We combine the approach with discussions led through visual metaphors, but then we also supplement with activities, experiential activities, journals, art activities, etc. Some of the most powerful student art projects I've ever seen have come from this particular learning unit, where they kind of artistically express this idea of tearing off negative labels. Really, really empowering idea. Do you want me to keep talking about the skills of resilience a little bit more, Christian?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yep.
It was interesting listening. I've seen that video of Christian and Mrs. Jackson more times than I can count. I've met Mrs. Jackson, incredible human, and I've never really considered the story or her approach through the lens of community schools. But as she was talking, I was really struck at how she was doing this community schools model like before it was probably formalized, and this approach to providing support to you, a child who wasn't her own biological child, but trying to provide both academic support as well as family, and community support in a really incredible way. It was really touching to view it through that lens. And we'll talk more about the community school piece here in a minute, but I want to highlight those skills of resilience for you that I mentioned. These all align with visual metaphors that we have, but here's our complete list of the skills of resilience that we've broken down. And this, in my opinion, makes it really convenient and really nice to be able to align these with specific challenges that you're addressing. And we're going to have Bob talk a little bit about that and how they've approached challenges in Tulare. But here's our list, kind of our master list of skills of resilience. We've broken it down into decision-making and consequences, positive self-image. We talked about both of those. Emotional regulation is a huge one. Can we help students gain greater control in how they act and react when their emotion becomes elevated? What do we do when we become angry? What do we do when we become embarrassed, frustrated, outraged, etc.? Motivation and a resilient mindset. Can we help them discover inner motivation to not give up? And that resilient mindset involves changing our perspective towards how we see challenges. When I was getting my research published on resilience, one of the key distinctions in resilience that really struck me and has stayed with me was this understanding that resilience is not the elimination of challenges. And we know that. You know, we work with students that have, in many cases, have a very unfair portion or heap of challenges that they have to deal with. And I, in many cases, didn't have the magic wand to make their challenges go away. Resilience is not the elimination of challenges, it's changing our relationship to them. So building a resilient mindset is really key towards that. Peer influence and positive relationships. How we connect with others. Can we avoid the influence of negative peer pressure? Problem solving. Resilient individuals are typically good problem solvers. Hard work and determination. Can I put sustained effort into something and see it through to completion? It's kind of the opposite of the apathy that we're seeing so pervasive right now across the country with students that just don't seem to care, don't seem to be interested in emotionally engaging with anything. Responsibility and self-discipline. Can I see the value of following rules and building the self-discipline that comes with that? Building positive support systems and learning how to positive relationship build. And then last, future-ready vision and self-efficacy. Can I see opportunities and goals for myself down the road? And then self-efficacy is the idea that you can, that you have the confidence that you can influence your outcomes. And that has a direct connection to hope. So the opposite of self-efficacy would be like hopelessness. When we're working with kiddos that have become hopeless, that is a good indication that most of the resilience has kind of been crowded out with that hopelessness. And so we're trying to counter that, provide an antidote to that, and help our students have a greater vision of hope, which sometimes can feel irrational when you're in the midst of challenges, but has a really important place in the formula for resilience. So in conjunction with that, we have this collection of visual metaphors. We're very focused on using a visual metaphor approach to teach those concepts, defense mechanisms for emotional regulation, the motivation formula for building that resilient mindset. Can I believe that I can channel my challenges towards productive outcomes? Climbing out, this is a fun one about avoiding the dangers of negative peer pressure. You can see that crab trying to get out of the pot. The other crabs are trying to pull it back in. And this happens to so many of our students when they start to make changes and forces in their life, whether it's family or friends, try to pull them back in. Problem solving, like learning the steps to jump over a hurdle. This is hard work and determination. We've got and for each one of these, we actually have a whole suite of resources. This is a fun one to talk about, learning to follow the value of rules. You've got an out of balance weightlifter. The half of his body lifting a weight is building muscle mass. The half lifting a balloon isn't building the muscle mass. The weight represents rules, laws, expectations, guidelines. And I'm guessing many of you work with students that struggle following the rules, following directions, developing routines. that discipline acts like a muscle. And if we don't learn to build it, then we don't have the muscle and we're weaker in the face of adversity. Getting plugged in towards positive systems of support, and then learning to change our perspective towards our challenges, towards that resilient outlook and concept of self-efficacy. I went through very quickly because I want to make sure we have time to hear from Bob, and I want to hear a little bit more from Christian. But that's the quick overview of those skills of resilience that ultimately help teach and prepare students to be future ready, but also to address challenges in their lives today. What would you add to that, Christian?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jason. That was extremely helpful. I kind of just show where this fits in a little bit with community schools. It's interesting. With community schools, they take a whole child approach. Jason was telling you about, what Mama Jackson did for me. She was that relationship for me. And that's, one piece of the pie was having that relationship, that connection with Mama Jackson. But, I also needed academic help. I had some neighbors involve me in sports. Jason did his thesis looking at sports and resilience. And there was a coach across the street from my house that had me join a local football team. And then they did volunteer work at the school and stuff. But anyways, what's amazing about community schools is it is that whole child approach where, we need that relationship that Bob was talking about earlier. I had a teacher that, helped teach me how to read. It went to the extreme to teach me how to read when I was older. And if you're not familiar with community schools, I just want to say to everybody out there, if you Google community schools in California, I know they're in several states across the country, but California is doing some really innovative work around community schools. So yeah, please take the time to see.
I'll put up a couple links here in a minute.
Yeah, just put up some links to connect you to that. But just highlight one thing about, what Jason was showing with WhyTry. Again, WhyTry is skills of resilience. The book, The Resilience Breakthrough, that I wrote really focuses on where resilience comes from internally. What gives you the motivation to go from staring at that wall right there to getting on top of that wall? And we put probably about 2 million kids through skills of resilience. And then we started realizing we really need to break down that motivational piece. And we as adults need resilience as well, just as much. But yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jason.
I love it. Thank you. I want to connect over now to this idea of community schools, and then I want to learn from Bob a little bit because I think Bob's got some unique perspective on it. Before I do that, I want to just share a couple of links with you here for those that may be curious about it. Here, I'll share my screen. So here's some research that was done on community schools in California. This was just released last month, September of 2025. I'm not going to go into it too much, but it highlights the effectiveness of the model. I'll put a link to this outcomes for the community school approach there so that you can see some of the interesting things California's done. But it is this whole child approach. It's built on 4 pillars: integrated student support, extended learning time and opportunities, collaborative leadership practices for educators and administrators, and then family and community engagement. I'll give you this other piece as well that may be interesting to some of you. This is a landing page we have that shows how WhyTry aligns with the community schools model. I'll link that in the chat as well. But for those that are trying to get a little more information, and I think this is useful for a couple reasons. One, if you're part of a community school, I think it's helpful to know what the kind of the mission behind it is, and so that you can understand how to maybe gain greater access to resources to support you in that model. And then if you're not part of a community school, then I think there's still some really valuable lessons that can be learned because it has shown to be a really effective way to support students. And so with that, I want to hear from our esteemed guest, Bob. Bob, I think you have a unique perspective here, given the county that you work in. I've been out there several times, and I know you have several community schools within your county. You've got a unique spot there, and I think a unique perch there in California because I think maybe a lot of people that aren't in California don't understand or appreciate how diverse of a combination there is between rural and urban schools and city centers. And in your particular county, you take in so much of that diversity and have to really become experts in supporting a lot of different schools. So I was wondering if maybe the first thing I'd love to hear from you, Bob, is just if you're willing to speak a little bit on the community schools model, and maybe put it in a little more kind of layman terms for what a community school is, what it's designed to do. And then I'd love to hear from you a little bit about how you've implemented WhyTry within your approach there and what some of the challenges you've used WhyTry to address there are.
Sure. So, I think community schools is something that we've all wanted schools to be. That idea that as a overall community, the school being that hub to help support our students in all those aspects. But in some way, we've kind of strayed from that in some way. And so it's really just kind of this initiative and this focus to bring these components back. My county specifically, we're about the size of the state of Rhode Island. And so we have, popular cities where we have, our largest city has 4 major high schools, each over 2,000 students, to rural schools that have, we have one small school in the outskirts that serves 12 students at their entire school. So just a wide variety throughout our entire county. And so when we're really looking at, and I think that we're all seeing that common idea. And when I was a site principal, my staff, you said, I just wish these kids had grit. That was kind of the term that a lot of my staff was adopted by that school. Yet at the time, we're thinking, but we don't teach it. How do we actually blend in and teach resilience? When I had the opportunity to really get involved in WhyTry and seeing it, this was perhaps one of the first tools that I saw that helped bring and specifically taught the resilience strategies for students to learn in a manner that appeals to student learning. Because of the fact of both the activities based, the visual metaphor and the music, by combining those, we're taking a peek at interest. So many times I've been a part of where check-ins for kids, where I bring the kiddo in and it's like, so how's your day going? Is everything okay? You feel good today? And the kid would just kind of give me the nod and I'd send them off to class. Without actually drilling down to actually understand what's going on or what's causing stress. And so by implementing WhyTry in a lot of our schools, we're actually changing that approach because we're creating activities. And, when we use activities, and a lot of the activities create stress in a safe manner. That little bit of competition creates some stress. But then when we see the way students react, and then we can talk about the way they react to just losing in a game where they're just writing numbers, or losing, or trying to write we have them write with their right hand their name, sign their name as many times as they can in a minute with their right hand, to signing their name as many times with their left hand. And that little bit of anxiety and that little bit of stress, where it allows us to springboard off of that stress to talk about, so what are the appropriate ways? What are the other opportunities in your life that bring up this stress? And let's work together and problem solve together on the appropriate ways to manage these things. So that's been a huge support. Now we've implemented it, and Jason and Christian, we're all familiar with MTSS. We have programs that we're using this at the level 1, so all students at the grade level are getting exposed to the WhyTry curriculum and taking them truly from the roller coaster ride all the way to the brick wall where they're standing over the wall looking at it with events. And so and the kids look forward to these lessons. When my staff comes in, they are so excited to see that person that's presenting their WhyTry and that curriculum that they truly put them up on a pedestal. But we've then taken another approach working. So we are, like I said, we are a rural area. We're also right where we have in California, we have the Highway 99, which runs north and south throughout the entire state, which is a huge drug trafficking highway, though. So we have probably at least, I think the last time I saw the stats, 50 different subsets of gangs here in this area. We have a large population of our Hispanic gangs. And so when we're working with our kiddos, we're discovering how do we also alter that lifestyle for them. And so we've been working with schools and specifically with our probation, with our youth probation, for the schools to identify their kids that are starting to show some of those signs and some of those indicators. And then we do small group WhyTry activities with them to really help perhaps change that path. And I think it's about developing it again. If we don't teach kids how to be resilient and give them opportunities to model it, which is what WhyTry does, they're never going to be able to practice it and put it into the real life.
That's awesome, Bob. I was wondering if maybe you could share just a little bit about, and you indicated some, but what are some of the other challenges you've used WhyTry to try to address? I know you've approached like some prevention and chronic absenteeism. I also was wondering if you'd be willing to just brag a little bit, because I think it's really cool, and I know you guys did this. You did some really cool resilience assemblies that I know have turned into kind of a thing. Like you have people asking you to do these now.
We are, yes. So we had an opportunity where one of the schools districts asked us to help them with their attendance. They were struggling with their attendance numbers, and I think we all know that if kids aren't in school, they're not learning. And so we were looking at the Resilience for Youth program, and in working with Jason and some of the staff, looking at how can we take some of these components and really bring it out to a school rally type. And so we've really developed that attendance is your power kind of theme, and to build resilience. And so we run this 40-minute assembly where there's kids involved, but we're running through, again, we're taking some of those, even for the participants, some of those small WhyTry easy games and activities to put into place to then again create some stress, but then talk about how are we going to overcome those stresses. And then we connect that to the stresses that they have in life. And yes, it is far easier to stay at home and shut the door and stay in bed, and then deal with the stress that may be occurring at school. But we know that that's not the best, and the students know that that's not the best. But by giving them the activities, processing it in a conversation of this resilience rally allows that whole model to continue to move forward, where we now have schools knocking on our door saying, can you come do this resilience rally at our school? Because other schools are talking about it, and it's actually making an impact in their school attendance.
It's so good. And it reminds me, what I found this quote that was part of the community schools model. It's under the integrated student support, but it was a quote from the California model. It said, students must be well known so that they can be well served. And I think it aligns so nicely with your approach, but it also really made me think of the impact Mrs. Jackson had on you, Christian. And I wondered if, Christian, maybe if you wanted to take just a couple of minutes and maybe share a little bit about the idea of relational resilience. I think that might be a key connecting point with the community schools model and what you've learned from your research on the power of relationships, and particularly this idea of relational resilience.
Yeah. The main theme of relational resilience is you go through the motions. You don't give up because another person needs you and you need them. It's that interdependence. Just resilience shoots through the roof the more that you're reaching out to others and others are giving that back to you. For example, my two kids, Cooper and Carson, before COVID hit, life was going pretty smooth. And for years I would say, hey, if I never got invited to speak again, I would go work in 4 different fast food restaurants, because they need me, I need them. There's a picture of them right there. Jason just pulled up there under relational resilience. And then COVID hit, it actually happened. I couldn't go out and speak. And, I was highly motivated to not give up. We made it through COVID, but it was because of my resilience kicked in because of these 2 kids right here. And you don't have to be born with relational resilience. It's something that we can literally teach. Mama Jackson was that relational resilience for me. There's me and my brother Sean there. And yeah, that connection is so powerful. And then, one thing we teach kids, part of that connection, we teach something called surrendering the one up. You can kind of kick that relationship up a little bit by just letting people know they have value and worth, whether they succeed or whether they fail. A lot of kids that we're working with, and I know in community schools, they really put an emphasis on this, is they want it to be a safe environment for these kids. And the ability to surrender that one-up relationship when they feel one down is so powerful. And then and one thing that really improves relational resilience is to really be heard by someone. We all, when we speak, we want to be listened to. We want to be really understood. I know, Jason, if you want to talk a little bit about resilient listening, which ties to relational resilience.
Yeah, I'll circle back to that. I think Bob wanted to chime in.
Okay, yep, Bob.
And just because you're talking about surrendering the one up, and for everybody here that's in attendance, I mean, this is a simple concept that can be taken back today. And when I was trained on it, and I share components of it regularly, if we really want students to feel a part of their classroom, which it's theirs, it's their learning space as much as it is the teacher's classroom. And for us as educators, when we truly stop using the words, it's my classroom, and we truly start to adopt that topic of it's our learning environment. This is our classroom. This is where we work together. That can be implemented today. You can take that back to your sites and you can share that with your colleagues and with your staff. And that mindset alone can start to make the change. We're recognizing that these students are a part of who we are and what we're trying to do. And if we continue to we have to be the one up them by saying, but it's my room, it's my classroom. We lose them. And truly, so that's something that can be taken right now and implemented.
I love it. Wow, that's a skill on surrendering the one up. We have lots of skills, but hey, that's another one I'm adding to the portfolio right there. Thank you, Bob. That's powerful, powerful.
Yeah, really, really well said. That idea of surrendering the one up is certainly at the heart of the.
And I'm just touching on it. We're just that's just
yeah. We are just skimming the surface. But go ahead.
It's kind of the heartbeat of the WhyTry approach, and it's we are a relationship-based approach because of what Christian described. Relationships are at the core of resilience, and so we do want to take that skills-based approach. We want to teach all 10 of those skills of resilience, but then we ultimately want to help students understand their sources of resilience as well, relationship being one of them. I actually would be intrigued, Christian. I think we could pull it off in time because we gave kind of a teaser on your model of the 4 sources of resilience. Would you be interested in going over that quickly? Yeah, you've already covered relational.
Yeah. Yep. I'll give the prescription. I can give it literally in just a few minutes, in 3 minutes. I can lay out the prescription for resilience. And this is what my book.
Do you want me to? You want me to go to this one or this one?
Yeah, go ahead to street. Go ahead to street resilience. Maybe pop
this one
to street. Yeah. Perfect. Yep, that's perfect. So just real quick, looking at a model, the first thing you have to be resilient. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. You have to have something to bounce back from. So the first thing you have to be resilient is you have to have suffering. And so resilience has never showed up without some type of difficulty, opposition, suffering. So that's number 1. Step number 2 is you have to ask yourself a question. And we call this the flip the switch question. You have to ask yourself, how do I use this suffering as a reason to turn in my homework, to stay in school, to make better decisions? You have to say to yourself, how can I use this difficulty as a resource? So that's step number 2, flip the switch. And remember, I can spend 45 minutes on each one of these, so you get a Reader's Digest version. And then the next step number 3, is all of us have between 40 to 60,000 different emotions during the day. And some of those emotions are going to be positive, and some of those emotions are going to be negative. And it's the human condition to have both positive and negative emotions. You see this battery right here. It's like a car battery. You can't charge a battery with just a positive connection. And you can't charge a battery with just a negative connection. It's the combination of both of these coming together. And if you think about it, you have twice the fuel source to bounce back if you can maximize both your positive and negative emotions. If you have to wait for positive emotions to show up, love, joy, calm, peace, happiness, hopefulness, you're actually at a resilience disadvantage. When we study people who are highly resilient, they have the ability to take frustration, anxiety, fear, rejection, and they say, hey, because of these negative emotions, I'm going to try to be a better friend, a better father, a better wife, a better husband, a better employee. I'm going to take the negative emotions, and it's going to literally say this on my tombstone. There's no law in the universe that says you cannot take a negative emotion and create a productive outcome with it. And so again, this is an hour speech right here just on this, but I know how intelligent this audience is. So think about it. What makes you human is the fact that you feel anxiety, fear. It's actually where your maturity comes from, is you take those negative emotions and you do productive things with them. That's where maturity comes from. That's where growth comes from. That's where safety comes from. And so again, that's the battery. So step number 3 is the ability to maximize both your positive and negative emotions. And then step number 4 is when we've already talked about relational resilience. And then step number 5 is something called street resilience. And that's where you take any type of disrespect or past mistake and use it as fuel to propel you forward. Jason and another PhD did a little research trying to understand what street resilience really is. It's when a person's identity comes under attack. When someone's identity comes under attack, they tend to want to fight back, not give up. For example, I had a professor who came to me in college and said, Christian, if you can get a college degree, my degree is worth less. You have a 6th grade math level, a 7th grade reading write level. You shouldn't be on this college campus. I literally walked off that campus that afternoon in tears. 6 months later, 6 years later, 6 years, I was in an introduction to school social work textbook. Is evidence-based RTI, PBIS, and all this stuff. So he had to actually lecture on my theories. You might say, well, you're bragging a little bit, Christian. I would argue I'm being street resilient. You told me I'm not even good enough to be here. I'm going to use that as fuel. There will always be haters. There will always be people judging you. Resilient people you can't focus on what's outside of you. Resilience takes place really internal. When I was in New Orleans the other day speaking to about 200 people, I said to the audience, everybody point to themselves. Everybody pointed to their heart. Street resilience takes place here. Maybe 1 or 2 people pointed here, but our inner motivation to access street resilience comes from our heart. And that's where you push through when you feel tremendous opposition against you. It's not your brain that's going to get through that. It's your heart that's going to push through. I was just in Uvalde. Uvalde hadn't won a football game in like a couple of years, in 2 years. And I was talking to some of the players there on the sidelines. I said, remember, you're going to win this game at a heart level. Your physical bodies can do it, but your heart has to win this game. And it's one of the most powerful things to tap into, that street resilience. And then the third place that out of these sources, kind of the 6th one here is, these are all examples of people, is resource resilience. And that's the ability to maximize your talents, your abilities, your resources. For example, I only have 2 skills. I could talk nonstop. I could draw really good. So I make a living today by nonstop speaking, taking everything in mental health. So that's maximizing my resources. And Jason, do you want to talk about rock bottom and then wrap this up real quick?
Yeah, happy to. Rock bottom resilience is this natural resilience for a lot of people that kicks in when they hit rock bottom moments. You've probably heard it or even said it yourself. Hey, do you think so-and-so's ready to change yet? I don't know. They haven't quite hit rock bottom. So there's something internally that happens to people in rock bottom moments. So the goal was, could we kind of dissect and understand what was happening in rock bottom moments and what were the ingredients that could cause somebody to move forward at a rock bottom moment? And would it be possible to learn to apply those even when we're not at rock bottom moments? And the 2 pieces that came out of it, as we really dug into the research, was the combination of hope and self-efficacy. And when we apply rock bottom resilience, we're tapping into hope and self-efficacy. And I mentioned before, sometimes hope can be a little bit irrational. A lot of us in rock bottom moments may not be able to see any clear path out or any clear solution, but the act of just believing there's something there if I move forward is hope. And then that has kind of a domino effect towards that concept of self-efficacy. If I start to believe that I can actually influence my outcomes, then it starts to transform motivation, it starts to transform resilience, and it starts to really reprogram and reframe my connection to the challenges that are inherent in my life. And so this becomes so critical. And I think it's such a useful centerpiece of the community schools model because it has an impact on everything. It impacts academics, but it also impacts how we engage with the world and the challenges around us, perhaps in our own home, perhaps in our community, perhaps in our friend group. And it becomes this really holistic approach to developing resilience in a way that's gonna have an impact. And I think Bob's shared experiences there at Tulare reflect that as well. You know, they're helping students show up and attend. They're helping students become more literate and pass their classes, but they're also helping equip students to deal with some really significant challenges and adversity in their life. And ultimately, this thing that we're a part of is preparing kids to eventually be grown-ups, and hopefully we've given them the skills to be able to pursue and believe that they have access to opportunity as a grown-up, and then have the resilience to go out and try to get it and face the adversity that then exists through that lane of being a grown-up. So we want to help you out a little bit. We've got some great resources in the form of this resilience bundle. I've got a QR code up, and if any of you are interested in our resilience bundle, it has some parent resources, which are very handy in a community schools model as you're trying to connect. William, if you're looking for that without the QR code, you can shoot me an email, jason@whytry.org, and I will get you the link. I'll forward you the link. I can't share it right now because I'm sharing my QR screen, but if you'll email me, William, I'll get you that. But this resilience bundle will have, it'll have a lot of information. It's going to have access to several resources, including our parent guide. We're going to give you a free WhyTry lesson plan, I believe, to the reality ride with the roller coaster. It's a great thing. You can take it and use it right away to have a discussion and help teach the concept of decisions and consequences to your students. You've got info on some additional resources, webinar, podcast series, and then some other really useful resources as well. So we want to get that in your hands. Christian, I know I don't want to speak out of turn or on behalf of you, but I know you've thrown out the idea a little bit, and I don't know if you'd be interested in doing it here.
I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. One thing I'd like to do, and I really want my friends in Miami, if you're still on, to listen up to this, but because I've been trying to get into South Florida there for a long time. But anyways, I'm really interested, if anybody wants to do this, I have a little bit of time over the next couple of weeks where I can do a demo online on resilience, where I just highlighted in the last couple of minutes, me and Jason hit, those kind of 7 steps of resilience there that we just went through with you in the book, The Resilience Breakthrough. If you want, I'll literally do a free webinar. I mean, I'm gonna be really honest with you. That's a $6,000 to $8,000 presentation. Like I'm going next week somewhere to do one in Alabama. I'm doing one the next week live in Arizona. I'm just saying this is something that is a really good deal. Please take advantage of that. And if you give me enough notice, I can even maybe grab Jason or Bob to pop on application. I can share it. I'd love to do something with Bob and have him share a little bit about where the rubber hits the road application of it in a school, because he's done incredible work with resilience and with WhyTry. So, but I'd have to have some notice to try to snag Bob as well. But hey, that right there, that might be a $15,000 consulting thing right there if I throw Bob in. But really, I'm being funny, but I'm being serious, you guys. That's a really good deal.
It's a pretty generous offer. Email me if you're interested, Mary. He's done them for a few other groups, several other groups. It's a great experience. It's basically a 1-hour workshop on the resilience model. There's some really great.
Anybody who wants to come. You can invite your director of student services, special education, guidance. You can have anybody come to it, and it's a free event. And and I could have, Jason pop on with me. I could have Bob potentially pop on. I'd have to be with Bob. I'd have to have a little notice for him because of his schedule. But yeah, we'd love to do something like that with you guys.
So if you're interested in that, you can email me, Jason at WhyTry.org. Otherwise, hit that QR code if you want our resilience bundle. I think it's worth it just for the parent resource alone. There's a parent guide to resilience that you can share. It has no login or paywall in front of it. It's a free resource that you can share with your parents. So, hey, I think we're about out of time. I want to thank our panelists for showing up. Huge round of applause for Christian and Bob. Thank you both. Bob, really, really appreciate you. I know this has been a very busy day at a very busy time of year for you. So huge thank you to you for being willing to take a little bit of time out of your day and share.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But I am going to excuse myself. Thank you guys so much. And again, truly, I believe in the work that you're doing, and that's why I'm here.
All right, thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Bob. You're
Thank you,
amazing.
guys.
You're amazing, man. Thank you.
And then thank you, Christian. Great stuff as usual. And then huge thanks to our attendees. You're doing great work. I hope, I love seeing you on here. It feels, it's a community, and love seeing you on here. And I know that education is tough. It's really tough right now. I've been the director of training for 10 years, and I always lead my trainings doing a listening session, trying to learn a little bit about the challenges. And I can tell you, as both a practitioner and as a trainer, I think education is as complex and as difficult right now as it's ever been. So I tip my hat to you all for continuing to bravely show up and do the work. It's really important work, and it still attracts the best humans. So thank you for doing it. Hopefully this has been a little pick-me-up for you if you've needed that, and hopefully it'll get you excited about some additional resources and a nice approach to resilience. If you have any questions, you can email me. Hit the QR code if you want the resilience bundle. Otherwise, I'm going to play us out with a little music. Thanks for everybody showing up today. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, everybody.